To start out this NHL season, we've had a bunch of NHL players starting out surprisingly well, but on the flip side, we've also had a ton of NHLers disappointing in a pretty major way. So I wanted to go through these slowest starts in the NHL to see how bad they played up to this point, if they could rebound, and how much trouble they could be in if these slow starts were to continue. So make sure you guys watch till the end as we go through all of these different players to see which might be in trouble and which might not, and hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey content just like this all throughout the hockey season. Now for some ground rules, I did want to mention that I won't be talking about any goaltenders on today's video, mostly because it's just too early for them. A lot of them have played only around like 4 games or so the sample size is extremely low. If I make a video about maybe every team's disappointing player like I usually do every single season in like a month or so, then they'll be included, but the sample size is a little bit too low for me to be comfortable including them. Now when talking about the disappointing players, we're just going to go alphabetical order in terms of teams here. So we're going to start with the Anaheim Ducks, and a disappointing player for me so far has actually been Jackson Lacombe. And I will say this, I do think he'll eventually get out of this mini slump, but I do think I was expecting a bit more from him, especially for how dominant that second half from him was last year, and of course the massive contract that he got starting this season. He's going to be going from $925K to $9 million after this next season, and I don't think he's quite been able to play up to that level. In terms of ice time, he's certainly been up there, playing so many minutes, it's actually a bit concerning. Currently averaging 25 minutes and 23 seconds of time on ice per game. That puts him 6th among all NHLers right now, so a lot of Anaheim's games are built behind Lacombe, and even though defensively I still think he's been at the pretty solid level he was at in the second half of last year, the offense hasn't quite been there. There's been some good moments here and there that he set up, but it's not been at quite the dominant level, especially in transition, as it maybe was back in the second half. I think it'll eventually get back into place here, but only 1 point through 5 games, no goals there, I think is a bit low considering how much money Anaheim is about to pay this guy. I'm just saying, Lane Hutson started to look a lot better after his contract extension was signed, and I'm kind of waiting for Lacombe to do the same here. Moving on to one, though, that I would say is much more disappointing, especially when you consider what he's been the last couple of seasons, and that is Yegor Sharangovich of the Calgary Flames. Now, you could pretty much put every single player there on Calgary. If we're talking about goaltenders especially, Dustin Wolf has not been at the level you'd really want from him, but Sharangovich, in terms of what he was and what he now has become, has been one of the most disappointing career arcs of recent memory. Putting up 59 points and 31 goals back in 2024, which wasn't all that long ago, but last year put up 32 points, 17 goals, was a down year for him. But this year it feels like we just found a new low with him in terms of his effort level, in terms of his consistency. He already was a pretty streaky player, but it feels like it's become even worse now. With just 1 assist, 0 goals through 6 games, Sharangovich is, yes, a part of a disappointing team, but one of the most disappointing players over the last year and a half. On to another one that has been extremely disappointing to start out this season. We go on to Andrei Svechnikov of the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, I know a lot of people will mention Nikolai Ehlers in this, but I think he's played really well considering the lack of point totals he's put up. I think that'll eventually start turning his way. In Svechnikov's case, though, I can't even say that. Getting paid $7.7 million as a former second overall pick, he's also another one that I just become continually disappointed in, especially when you consider what he was doing back in his first couple of years of his NHL career, getting 61 points, 68 games in his sophomore season, and then a couple of years later, 69 points and 30 goals. Since then, it's just kind of been a bit of an inconsistent mess. In the playoffs, he's played pretty well. I mean, the last couple of playoffs, hovering around a point per game, which is good to see. But in the regular season, it just doesn't really feel like he's all that interested in showing up. Last year was already a season that I was expecting a bit more from him, and he put up just 48 points and 20 goals in 72 games. And then you can see, to start out this season, 0 points, a full donut in the goals, assists, and points through 6 games. This has always been something that I just want to see so much more of, especially in the physical engagement, because the potential is there. He's almost 200 pounds, 6'2". He has the potential to be an absolute dog, just doesn't really feel like he wants to most of the time. But now he's not even really producing, and at that point, he's just a pretty ineffective and invisible player. So far, Carolina has survived quite well with Svechnikov being a complete non-factor, but I think they'd like for him to get at least going a little bit. I mean, even a 50-point season at this rate seems kind of out of the question if he continues playing like he is. Now, speaking about another player that has been a bit of a frustration in the regular season that does come up in the playoffs, but is starting to become a bit of an issue right now, and that is Evan Bouchard of the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton is kind of been a weird team to start out this season in general, but Bouchard has just been bad. And there's not really any ifs and buts about it. He has just not been good whatsoever. 0 points sitting through 6 games. And if Bouchard isn't putting up point totals, if he's not setting up plays, I mean, I don't think his defense is as bad as people say, but it certainly has not been good or even average to start the year. I mean, for me, I saw him being a contender for not the Norris Trophy. I didn't think he'd win it, but a potential finalist in the conversation. But I definitely don't think that's happening now. And I think, honestly, he can kiss his Team Canada spot goodbye. I don't think it was quite there in the first place, but I think now it's a lot harder to make that argument, especially for what would likely be more of a bottom pair role. Another player who was potentially vying for a Team Canada spot that I'm not so sure about anymore, and that is Sam Bennett of the Florida Panthers. Another one, kind of like Bouchard, who's proven himself as much more of a playoff performer than the regular season. Even though Florida is mostly paying for the playoffs, absolutely, I think you'd expect a bit more than 1 point and a -9 through 7 games. Now that you're paying him those big bucks and also he's playing more ice time than he ever has because of the Barkov injury, I think you'd want to see at least him exceeding expectations a little bit in the regular season, maybe getting to 60 points or so, but I think that might be out of the cards for how he's playing so far at least. On to the New York Rangers, one of the more disappointing players for me so far has been Will Cuylle. Now, I'd probably say Alexis Lafreniere has been the most disappointing, but sneak peek, I'm probably going to make a specific video about him, so stay tuned. But Will Cuylle was one that has been all over the place for me because I wasn't a huge fan of him back in 2020 just because I didn't quite see the offensive potential from him, but he was really able to develop that over the course of his OHL career, and especially now with the Rangers, he's shown good things. I mean, especially last year, he got 20 goals, 45 points in 82 games, but as you can see, through 8 games, only 1 goal, 1 point, and defensively hasn't been the greatest either. Still physically is doing the most. I mean, 29 hits through 8 games. The physicality is still there, but that scoring touch and that heads-up offensive play, I just haven't quite seen that yet so far. He was certainly trending to be a future top 6 wing for this Rangers team, absolutely, but so far looks much more like a bottom 6, third line, bang and crash type of forward, which is still a valuable piece, but I mean, not quite as good as we were expecting. Who knows? There's still a lot of time to rebound for him, but I think that overall body of work on top of the physical base, that layer of offense, it just has kind of gone unseen so far. Onto a forward that's in a pretty similar position, if not a couple of years older, in Fabian Zetterlund of the Ottawa Senators. Somebody that I had pretty high hopes in when he was traded to the Sens, but I gotta be honest, since he's come to Ottawa, he's just not been the same player, man. He's had an interesting career trajectory, to say the least, being a pretty decent player in New Jersey, but then really finding his game with the San Jose Sharks, especially over the last couple of years. You saw him get a 44-point season, 24 goals in 2024, and I thought he was really rounding out well as this good power forward with a base of strength and skill, and really starting to put that all together. And he was still doing well with San Jose last year before he was traded to Ottawa, where he only got 5 points in 20 games, no points in the playoffs, and it just didn't really feel like he was a good fit there. I was hoping that he was able to rebound well, though, this year and start to be a little bit more comfortable in the Ottawa system, but that just has not worked out so far. He's played all throughout the lineup, but I just don't think he's fit with any one player either. Played a lot with Tim Stützle, but I think the production with Stützle has just kind of been unacceptable. To go through 6 games with only 1 assist and not really even have that pure intensity that you want either, it just feels like he's kind of in no man's land in his career trajectory, in his actual play style, and it just doesn't quite feel like the fit is there. Maybe it's just simply he isn't a fit for Ottawa, or maybe he is just starting to phase out in terms of his effectiveness, but it would be a dang shame, man, because he was really looking good back in 2024, and I'm still hoping he's able to unlock that somehow in Ottawa, though I'm a lot less optimistic about that actually happening now. Oh boy, this is a big one, and this is another player that I might make a video about later on in the process, but I want to talk about Matvei Michkov now because this has been a just no good start to the season for him, and it's honestly really making me quite sad. Through 2 seasons, Michkov has had to deal with both John Tortorella and Rick Tocchet as his coaches, and for a pure offensive superstar, I think the only fate worse than that is death. I mean, he was still able to put up a really solid rookie season last year, getting 63 points and 26 goals through 80 games, and still able to do a lot of great things under a John Tortorella-like presence. But so far, Tocchet, man, I mean, this has just not been a great fit. I understand if Michkov wasn't in the greatest shape coming into the year. I understand that a ton, and Michkov certainly hasn't played well either, but I just don't quite think the system is a great fit for him personally. And he did just recently get another point, which is good, so he's got 2 points in 6 games, but I think you'd want a bit better from your pure offensive guy. I just think for Philadelphia, this has to be priority number one, because you cannot let Michkov get disgruntled or feel like he's out of place in that Philly system. He is a part of that future, and he quite honestly is that Philly future. And if he's not working out, that Philly team isn't working out. They've been okay, I guess, with Michkov still struggling, but they definitely need a lot more from him as they kind of debate where their future goes here. Now, this next one is a brutal one for me, man, because of my predictions before the year, and that is Robert Thomas of the St. Louis Blues. Easily one of the most disappointing players on the league so far to me, because he was somebody that I was expecting a big season from. I think one of my bold predictions was that he would hit 100 points on the year, take another big step, and I didn't think that was all too inconceivable. I mean, he got 81 points in 70 games. The points per game were looking good. I thought St. Louis would be strengthened a bit more on that top 6 as well, but my goodness, man, it has not worked out. 2 points through 5 games, and even regardless of the points, he just hasn't looked good at all. This is not my Robert Thomas, man, who's dishing, who's wheeling, who's dealing all over the ice, making unbelievable passes almost every single shift. This is an imposter. I don't know who it is, but I'll unveil it like a mask or something. It's gonna be like Cody Ceci behind him, because I just don't think this is the same guy. As you guys know, it takes a lot for me to glaze a St. Louis Blue, and I was glazing Robert Thomas hard all throughout this offseason. So to see him put up this type of performance, especially after how much hype I had about him going into the year, it's just a clear-cut disappointment. But it's not just that, it's just the effort level, it's the consistency. It's just not been anywhere near what you'd want out of the superstar for St. Louis. And again, another situation where they've gotten by okay, because even without him, but they need him to step up if they're going to have any hope at being a solidified playoff team. Another player that I was extremely high on that also has not had a good start to the season at all, and that is Brandon Hagel of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, I did want to pick Kucherov here, but that's mostly just me being mad because he has ruined my fantasy team so far. From me picking him inside the top 10, but Hagel is just one that I have been a bit underwhelmed with so far, especially considering the level that he was playing at before this. I mean, again, I don't think people realize this was a 90-point score last year, on top of the great defensive play he had too, even though the playoffs weren't great, and that was probably why he didn't get a ton of attention. Still, that production is otherworldly for a player that was like a 20-point score just a few years ago. But you can see so far through 6 games, he has just 1 assist for 1 point, -5. Even though I don't think the defensive game is completely evaporated, it's just not quite at the intensity that you want out of a Brandon Hagel. The game is still there slightly, but you kind of have to look hard for it. All right, now to go to another one of my fantasy team that has been pissing me off so far. Let's end today's video with Connor McMichael of the Washington Capitals. Now, granted, I only had him in like the last couple of rounds of my fantasy draft, so it's not the worst thing in the world, but Connor, I have my eyes on you, okay, buddy? Or at the very least, I should say that I did have my eyes on him because I kicked his butt to the curb a couple days back. He's not on my team anymore, but honestly, I just... Something about this season has been a little bit weird to me when it comes to McMichael, and I just got some bad juju after I drafted him. So you can see so far through 6 games, 1 assist, 1 point, and especially after the level he was playing at last year, especially to start things out, just a clear-cut disappointment. I mean, 26 goals, 57 points, on top of what I thought was a really good defensive foundation being built up. And as you guys can see, through 6 games, his 1 assist for 1 point hasn't quite been at the activity level that you'd expect out of him, not quite using the strengths he has in his game as much as he was last season so far. But that's a bit of an issue here for Washington, as Pierre-Luc Dubois is also on IR, who I also have on my fantasy team. So that center situation for Washington, especially if McMichael were to continue to struggle, could become a much larger issue. For now, they've survived, but I think for Washington, getting that center situation wrapped up, getting McMichael back to the level he's capable of is the big priority, because, I mean, Hendrix Lapierre as your third-line center, he's okay. He has some potential, but I think for the Caps to really be a strong contender, they need to get back to that form. And Michael especially needs to get back to the level he can get to. I mean, as a 23-year-old putting up what he was doing last year, it was incredible production, incredible play, and I'm hoping for his sake that we see that again at some point this year. But those are some of the players that I have been the most disappointed with so far. Some of these guys I do think will rebound, but some I think we could start to get the alarm bells going with them, but still some slow starts that I wanted to point out. If you guys enjoyed, of course, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and the notification bell. Comment down below your thoughts on who you think has been the most disappointing player to start out this season, especially for your favorite team, perhaps. Let us know all those thoughts down below. Of course, should have all the hockey fans you guys know online, and click on this card for all of my hockey trade rumor content, perhaps in one playlist if you want to binge watch that. And if you want to become a channel member as well to support the channel just a bit further, you can join for a couple bucks a month by hitting the join button around the subscribe button, or hit the link in the description down below. You get exclusive videos every single week, exclusive member polls that you can be a part of, as well as exclusive emoji on top of that. It's the best way to support the channel and the best way to allow me to keep doing what I'm doing here, so I appreciate it a ton. And a big thank you to all the channel members. Their names will be all up here on the screen. But that's it for me, folks. Make sure you guys have a fantastic hockey day, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.